were like, damn,
Damn.
this girl is a psychopath. Like she calls the guy that she's been stringing him along. She calls him to tell him that, hey,
You didn't make the
well,
cut.
whatever, it wasn't working out, and I'm already on another date. I hope all is well with you.
Dang.
You know what? We don't talk
about
about how girls do string guys along as well.
Oh man,
We hear the opposite a lot, but girls do string some guys along as well, and
oh.
just to explore,
No, this is
options.
not. It's not even over yet. Because like you could tell that she was just trying to go and smash this guy, whatever it was, and in a matter of like a month or two, or I guess in the series itself kind of goes fairly quick. You don't know what time frame it is, but around like 2 months later, it turns out the younger guy that's 7 years younger, he's like, yeah, it's not gonna. He brings her to a date spot, and they got the cameras on and everything, and she's like, oh yeah, it's like great to see you, everything is good, everything's working out okay, blah blah blah, and he's like, nah, it ain't working out for me, and he's like, he flexed out on her.
Damn.
Well, what did she expect?
Oh, this thing was cold. You have if it's hard to explain it. If you watch it, you'd be like, man,
What
this
is
is
it called?
messed up. The Indian Matchmaker show, and it shows a lot of
watch like the Flash and Arrow over and over again. So let's see.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. They're trying to do the matchmaking, but then a lot of these ladies are quote unquote modern women, as Uncle Kevin Samuel would say.
The late Kevin Samuel.
The late Uncle Kevin Samuel would say, and let them know that these people are terrible people. You're like, this is like, how am I single and I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm so great. I'm like, one, you're not that great. And second, your personality is trash. Like, how do you not know this? And then like your mom and dad, like, how do they not just tell you? Because sometimes they can tell in their face that your kid is garbage, but you just don't tell them. Just tell the kid they're trash.
Does anyone get married on the show?
Yeah, some people eventually get married, and recently
This
there's
kind of went dark.
No, there are some people that get married on there, and they do it fairly quickly, or some people kind of like they wait a little bit here and there, but they find somebody. And recently, this is one girl come up, and instantly I'm like, this is a quality, like solid chick. Like she's cool, because a lot of them are very much they high pedigrees. They have like doctorates. They're surgeons. They're this, that, and the third.
Yeah,
These are high pedigree people. So a doctor finally, runs into a dentist, and it's just her mannerism. I'm like, that is a woman that guys would love to date. She doesn't have to be the prettiest in the thing. There's something about her that she's open enough to have the conversation, and like fair enough to just be real, almost like vested in the actual date, not necessarily waiting for it to end and kind of judging it, but actually there with it. Right. And you could tell I'm like, you don't have to tell me by the end of like, this season, they're going to be getting married, or by next season, they will. However, it's going to come down, they're going to get married. Why? Because the woman seems to be a lot more warm. And when the guy is a little bit stiff, like a nerdy guy, or whatever it is, you kind of need like a warmer woman to kind of like push things along. But where a woman is stiff and the guy is warm, it typically never works.
I think I ever thought about it that way.
Because the guy is like, I've seen majority of those guys come on the show. They're trying to, hey, everything, but the woman is like, he's not my type from moment number one, or he said something a little bit odd here and there. Moment number two, she completely shuts off and moved on.
Yeah. Ooh.
And you're like, oh, okay.
I wonder, does it give that context with the Indian culture? I wonder how it is if they're like higher pedigree individuals and they're not married yet. That's kind of like,
well, they do give a lot of syntax. They're also like the beginning on different episodes, you find like they show like other married couples that's been married. They had what's it called, arranged marriages.
Yeah,
they probably even met for 15 minutes before they actually got married, but they've been married for the last 42 years.
Right.
Or people that actually did the matchmaking and they've been married for 30 years. So they're also showing the juxtaposition that it can work, and it has worked for years. It's just that the way that we are as individuals in society today, the almost like the inherent selfishness of the way we carry on as in the Americanized Western world, that, and then we also kind of like, we weigh options too much. There's too many options.
Let's say that.
Huh?
Yeah, I agree. I will say that
It's like
part.
because even that one, I guess recently, because the matchmaker, he kind of sucks. I'll be honest with you, she's just a person in between that somebody shows up to her, some other people, the woman shows up, the guy shows up, and she try to pair them. Like she's not really doing really
She was like, yeah,
introspective
both
work.
Indian. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. She's not doing introspective work here. She's not like the best here, but she does every once in a while. Like in a recent episode, she's like, okay, she found out what the woman wants, but then she said, you know what? You seem to be indecisive. I'm just gonna give you one bio data. That's what they call it, like the screenshot of the person, what they like, who they are, blah blah blah. I'm gonna give you one of these things at a time. If I give you multiple, then by the time you get into that first date, you always gonna be thinking about the
The
next one,
other one, yeah, gotcha.
which is it's actually probably the problem in society today because you're thinking, yeah, I'm going on a date with guy A, but you know, there's all these other guys, right? Or I'm going on a date with girl A or B, but there's all these other letters of women out there that I'm going to go on a date with next time. So it's almost like if you already coming in with the idea that you're just dating, then you've already failed the game.
Yeah, you're not giving the person that you are presently seeing, like, on the date with, like a fair shot.
Yeah. And it was something about how she worded that last one I thought was brilliant because that's also part of our problem. Like we're going on dates, but we're not going to go get married, if that makes any sense. It's like
Yeah.
if that's the goal, then obviously you're gonna go on a date. You're gonna be dating. But if your goal is to get married, then the date is kind of like a precursor to the marriage. So your target and your focus is different.
Yeah, but I guess I could get it. I get it on two ends of that spectrum too, because some people just want to keep it very light, and just genuinely get to know that person, right? And others just, they're going straight in with their intentions, like I want to get married and stuff like that. Because I feel like there is some kind of precursor, if you want to put it that way, when you're placing like you want marriage, and sometimes you're not thinking about the person you're placing in that picture of marriage versus genuinely getting to know them. Like some women are really like that. Like every season or every point of their life is another guy in that same story of wanting marriage. You get what I'm saying? So just like you kind of miss out on everything else that you're trying to do, especially developing yourself, but really missing out on who that person is and is they really a good match for you? Because we kind of set ourselves up if we're going too hard in. So I get it on both ends. Like you have to be a little bit
Yeah,
like the warm part that you were saying. Like, you gotta be a little bit lighthearted a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
I think I know what you mean by that, but I don't, it's a little bit like this. It's basically like you're going to date with intention of doing the next part. I think when we say dating on the social level, on the day-to-day level, we really imply dating like in the TV sense. Like there's multiple people, there's a seasons of dating, there's dating forever. Whereas some people that are successful at getting to the I guess jumping the broom part, they were dating with the intention of marriage. Is the intentionality that's basically not baked into the way that we process it. So when you see if it's probably just clearer when you see the episode when she said she calls the matchmaker and she said the matchmaker, you were right, the guy was younger and eventually left me, so on and so forth. And the matchmaker looked like she was kind of fed up with it. She said, are you serious now? And she's like, yeah, I'm serious, I'm ready to date again. And she's like, no, that's your problem, because you're ready to date again, you're not ready to actually get married. Are you serious? And she kind of goes around like, yeah, I'm serious now, but no, you're not serious. You can't just instantly. She didn't understand the philosophy that she was trying to tell her. Like she's just going about this in such a way that it's just I'm gonna go on the next date and the next date and the next date versus actually solving this problem.
Gotcha. How old is she?
Oh, that lady was like 38 or something.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of them were pushing older ages, and they've kind of like in some ladies you could tell they've chosen their careers as their lovers, so they're more focused on like, yeah, my career, whatever. And like this guy's trying to date her. Like, okay, one woman, I think she's out of New York when the guy was in California, but sometimes she'd kind of be somewhere like in Boston or maybe in Houston, but the guy would fly to Houston, would fly to Boston to go see her. There was a time that she actually went to California on a work trip or whatever it is, but she didn't even bother to call the guy. So you could tell that it's just like, and then she's like, I don't know where this is going.
Red flag.
You know what I mean? Like,
For
oh,
real.
I think we're doing fine, but I want to see where it goes. I'm like, no, you trash. You is trash. Like this guy is flying to go see you, to even give you a shot. A woman in all parameters of all guys that I look at, all the guys be like, nah, she ain't it, bro. She is not it. She's not a looker. She doesn't call for that moment. I'm like, but he's in an honest, earnest way. Like he's just like, hey, I'm gonna get to know you. But she's not even giving him enough room because she's too busy.
Mm.
So it's a lot. You learn a lot for that show. You're like, this is terrible. Scared for the
I
people
may need to
dating.
ask my brother for his Netflix account again. I haven't watched Netflix in a minute.
Oh shoot, you don't have Netflix account like that? You ain't
No,
password sharing no more?
the only thing I have is Hulu, Disney for my best friend, and I have the Peacock. My brother gave me that one, and I have the Amazon Prime.
I don't even know who's watching Peacock though. Like what are y'all
No,
watching on
the Best
Peacock?
Man series, like the new one, the last chapter,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
good. It was really good. First, I was like, kind of like, why didn't it make it into a movie? But they
I've
did a
never
great
seen the
job.
first one. Just to
They
let
did a
that know.
phenomenal job as a series. It was
Oh,
so
okay.
good. Yeah, that's one reason I got well, I got it from my brother to watch the last chapter. But oh no, I'm not if you guys don't give me a recommendation or anything, I told you I'm not sitting there scrolling and looking looking to, what to watch. But I know the Witcher new season is coming out, so I think I need somebody in Netflix to
It's on
watch.
June. It's coming out in June or something. So it's gonna be
Okay,
a
in
bit. I think
June.
it's all the way in June. I
But
don't think
people
it's coming up quick.
But people keep talking about the
Beef is on point.
beef. Yeah, beef.
Beef is on point. Yeah, it was really good.
Shout out to her because she's doing it up. Cause both of her Netflix stand-up comedies are like the first one was
Who?
so good. The what's her name? The one that started
Ali,
off
I think her name's
Ali
Ali Wong.
Wong.
I
Ali
think it's Ali
Wong.
Wong.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
she's
I've
really
heard a lot about her, but I
Yeah,
have never watched any of her specials.
she's been great.
Is
Like
it
her
good?
stand-ups are so fun. Yeah, both her stand-ups she was pregnant and it was
yeah.
hilarious.
It was good, and she also got divorced too. Oh,
Yeah, she got divorced.
Yeah, I seen
The
that
Harvard guy
one.
or Yale or something like that. It's funny enough because she mentioned on the first stand-up that the family was pressuring him to get a
prenup.
prenup. And she look around and she like, I got you now, mother. Like look at me now, thinking that she wasn't amount to anything.
Yeah, but I think part of it too is just the way, not, I would say probably culturally, the way
Yeah.
she does her stand up and also reveals so much about her family
Yeah.
through that is probably not the kosher for the other person. And
Yeah.
sometimes you are making fun of the other person, and it's almost like it's always running online somewhere. And if they run into you, they make fun of you too.
Yeah, because she came out about having HPV and everything. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I really enjoy her stand up, but she's definitely doing the thing.
But Beef is
It's good.
amazing. It's
Okay.
What is
amazing
Beef
stuff. It's
about?
kind of like Everywhere at Once. Like it hit me in that same vein of like this is a quality programming, very original, very
You talking about the
creative.
movie Everywhere at
Yeah,
Once?
the Everywhere at Once movie was very creative, very out the box. It really landed for a lot of different people, and it landed for me too. At an emotional level, you're like, man, this hits. And then Beef also did the same thing because you got into the Beef. The first the trailer shows like a road rage scenario,
Yeah,
but
Road
it's a
Rage. Yeah.
lot more than just that. So it really shows almost like a frustrated um human experience all around the board. So it's not just the beef that they have, that stems from that road rage, but it's also every other scenario where basically they're toxic or they've been, through scenarios that made them toxic, but they've also created an atmosphere where other people almost like bite off that toxicity and end up in problems themselves. So
Okay.
it's a real, yeah, it's 10 episodes, 30 minutes a pop. So it's not even like long episodes, but they do a great job of characters, acting, writing. All of it is bar
What's
none.
what's the other guy name that was on the I know he's Korean. He was on The Walking Dead. Isn't
Yeah,
that
he was on
him?
The Walking Dead. He's also had on Prime as an Invincible. He's the voice for that. Stephen Yeun, I think that's his name. Steve
Okay.
Yeun or Stephen Yeun.
Okay.
And A24 is weird to me because I'm like, is it Asian 24? Because there's a lot of like Asian, like almost like a lot of the Asian stuff is going through there, or maybe just Asian people like, you know what, we're gonna double down on this studio that seem to get us or want to actually tell stories with us.
Well, I do know Netflix is doubling down on the Korean content in general. I think the next 5 years they're putting in like over $1 billion in the production in terms of the shows they're trying to produce to get to Netflix because it's becoming a thing. People are enjoying it in general. I used to enjoy it when I was in. It's something about it. It's not the acting. I will say that. Not all of them get act, but there's something about it just like draws you. I don't know if it's just like the corny storyline.
It's a K drama. It's
Yeah, I don't
K
know what
drama.
about it. I'm like, I don't see how people get into it. But when I was there, it's like there's been some shows I was just so in tune. I want to make sure what's going on. But I don't know. People do enjoy the Korean dramas and stuff, but Netflix is doubling down on it. You'll see that more soon coming up.
Yeah, there's a couple of genres in there too. Yeah, you got the K dramas, almost like the I want to call it teeny bopper, but it's very like pink, very, the guy is aesthetically beautiful. The woman is, this awkwardly thing. It's just a very odd like sheen that they have on things, like very powdery sheen on
Oh,
some of their
very.
shows.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have the very dark stuff, which is almost like it's not really murder porn because that's not what that is. It's more of like it's violent. It's like really dark violence type of stuff. Like what's that one that came out that became a super hit? Shoot,
It start with the P. I know they
shoot.
got the Oscar. I know you're talking
It could
about
have been
the family that was doing some crazy stuff trying to move in.
nah, not
They
even
were
that one.
scamming. They were scamming people, right? Is that what
Not
you're talking
even
about?
I was talking about the other one, the one of the games. Shoot,
Oh, the
forget
game
that.
show. Yeah, I don't. I didn't even see it. I just seen a
It
lot of
was
people
really
talking
good.
about it. Yeah.
It was really good as well. Very much character driven. So it's interesting because I think the American audience is starting to realize that they've been missing actual story. We've actually moved away from decent storytelling or anything. It's just
Character
we
development.
have what the drama shows or what the reality TV shows. We have the comedy thingy, and it's not really that good. But when you get into other spaces where people actually still are artists that really trying to create stories for people, I think that's why people are gravitating towards like anime or even K dramas or anything that's even outside of America. Because you find the German stuff are out there too. The Russian shows are out there. The Swedish shows on Netflix. So there's all these other places vying because there's real stories being told, and I think the American populace doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that. But I have not I have not been watching like too much of streaming. But I do see everyone recommendation online about beef and other things that come up. Um Bruno is not letting up right now. He is going off. I can hear him in the background. Um yeah, no. Aside from that, how everyone else is doing. Lovely, you're kind of quiet.
I'm not like a TV program person, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to add these.
Oh, Squid Games. That's what's the name of
Squid
it.
Game,
Squid
Squid
Games.
Game.
Okay, yeah, Squid Game was good. I got to watch it when I was in Florida. It was
So
on the
is it a
longest we
show
have.
or is it a competition
Oh, it's a just a show
It's a
within a
show.
competition?
about a dark competition where
Yeah.
Competition.
people
Ah,
yeah
okay,
where
gotcha.
people die, but
It's a show
the
surrounding the competition
yes where people
Yes.
die.
where people
A
die.
lot. What's
Yes.
interesting about it? I don't know. So I watched it when I was in Florida with my sister and my cousin at the time. And I found that like I would have never probably been home and watched it myself. But because they were like, hey, let's do something, we ended up watching it. What I realized is that the death that they showed, I don't know if it was me. I didn't feel like it was dark as maybe it's because I'm like, I don't know. It was dark, but not dark.
Well, you're right. It's And I probably mislabeled it because I think it's really survival horror. I think that's what the
Yes, yes,
genre
yes,
is. It's
yes.
surviving, and the horror itself is always a more human horror. It's surviving ourselves. So the idea of Squid Games is people that gambled everything and they're willing to gamble, but at the same time, the rich people themselves created a game for poor people to play for
Yeah,
their
it's so much
amusement.
It sounds like
symbolism.
Hunger Games.
It's kind of like Hunger Games without that sheen. It's just taking it to reality, into what could even
Mm.
be happening right now. So for as much as we don't know, there's always a game being played amongst the elite versus the poor or whatever it is, and they just kind of they categorize it in this type of show. It's the same thing as All of Us Are Dead. Everything's survival horror. It shows you how human can you be as things kind of devolve around you.
Right. Do you guys think that we've lost part of our humanity lately?
In the West, yeah.
Lately?
Yeah.
It's not even lately. It's been the
No,
last
I'm
20,
just
30
saying,
years.
it's been progressively worse because I don't know, maybe because I sent that domestic violence video in the group, right?
Correct.
There were about 4 others that I didn't send. So I know that
I think it always been there. We just
that's what I'm
have
about to say. Is it like amplified because we have more quick access to see
I
the
think
people
so.
behind the
Yeah.
scenes of the people?
I
Or
think
is it like
so.
we're getting worse? Like,
I
which
think
one
so
is it?
because number one, they don't really like show when is someone that is non-white, right? They don't really get that national attention. In these cases, and with social media does help where it goes viral. We hear these stories, but it don't really get that platform. With these platform now, people are really giving like sharing the stories, what is happening. Because I know a YouTube channel that only shares domestic violence about Black women, and that's only short stories they tell. One, I didn't even know like that's going on in the cities or states, whatever, doesn't get the attention like the others that I see that gets on People magazine and everything.
Mhm.
So I think it's just that people just create these platforms to share more stories. Like these things are happening, you know?
Yeah, because so my question is it increasingly happening, or
It's
has it
both.
always been this way? You think it's a dichotomy?
It's both things. Sometimes when you're asking the question about, let's say, for example, which one influences which, do the rappers talk about the streets, or is the streets influenced by what the rappers say?
Yeah,
So
in
it's
those cases,
like
that's a dichotomy.
the art versus the reality. So in the end of the day, it's always been kind of both being pushed along the way, but there was probably a catalyst. For example, this week we have Jerry Springer. He passed away. I think
Yeah.
he was 79 or something like that, and he
Mhm.
was known as the ringmaster. And I think the title that they give him at some point was like the ringmaster of the end, right? It's like he created an atmosphere in which we put the lens on almost the worst parts of society, and then we, because of the nature of man being as fallible or just irrational or even somewhat in the subconscious evil, we watch those things for entertainment. So what other people did is like, I got to go record so I could get back on this thing, so I could watch this thing for entertainment. So it creates like this vicious cycle in which this is who we are. And now that we have cell phones, and we got instant, instead of the filter where you had to send it to MTV, you had to send it to a network
We don't
to
have
get,
that anymore.
we don't, there's
Yeah.
no filter. Now you send that
Mhm.
sucker right up online, you put it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and you're going to get your reaction. Even like about 2 weeks or right, yeah, probably this week, or yeah, about maybe a little bit less than 2 weeks ago, there was a fire at the building next door. I
Mhm.
heard a girl say, "Oh, fire!" I'm like, "What the heck is she talking about?" It sounded like she was kind of pranking or something. And then I'm like, maybe there is, because she seemed like she's yelling again. So I go outside, and across from me is another building where there is a fire, and she's standing there being kind of hysterical, and other people are coming out. And one other black guy, he's standing there with a cell phone videotaping this fire, right? Instead of actually doing anything, he's just recording this thing. He's like, "Oh my God, the fire's getting to the gas tank. Oh, wow, this is messed up." I'm looking at all of these people, right? Then we now have a good 20 people outside. Instead of going for fire extinguishers, instead of actually calling the firefighters, instead of actually doing anything, they're just standing there as the perfect bystander. It's the oddest thing. I'm in another building. I run to go get like I guess some type of thing to smother the fire. Then I realize, oh, the fire is probably gonna eat up this thing, the wood chips, whatever. So I'm like, okay, I need to go get. Anybody got like a fire extinguisher? I go grab my fire extinguisher, and the lady's like, no, don't. The firefighter said, don't do anything. I mean, don't do anything to this fire that's actually spreading towards the gas thing that we're talking about here. Don't do anything.
Wow.
And I'm looking at the other guy, and while I'm trying to spray, I'm like, you might want to stand back, like very much far back. Like, it's just the oddest thing. So I'm giving you that example because it felt very much the society that we live in. It is now known as the society of the spectacle. We like what we see. It is the ringmaster. It is Circus Maximus. It is the arena again, Rome all over again.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's definitely crazy. The Jerry Springer, when I found out he passed away, I looked him up. I didn't know he was a mayor. Did
What?
you guys know that?
Yeah, some of these
And
people are.
he used to be an advisor for John F. Kennedy.
Yeah,
And
that's
how
how
did
he
he end
started.
up being Jerry?
So
That's
how you start off would never be how you know finish and leave this world, because that's a total 360. I remember seeing a little bit of the documentary. I think it's on Hulu or something. They talked about his life a little bit, and the show started off as like this thought provoking, because Jerry Springer is a intellectual person, right? But it just started off with like, these guests, and he'll talk about different things, and it just like went a total 180 with everything else. But yeah, he was a mayor and he used to work in
Wow.
Congress. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he ended up on TV at some point, because a lot of politicians end up making that pivot, or
Yeah.
pseudo politicians. Even if you didn't make it to mayor or whatever, you're like, hey, you end up in the news, and then if the people like you enough, then you could start pivot towards conversations, and then at the end of the episode, this is my final thoughts that he created. So he ended up creating an entire show off of that because people kept on wanting to tune in. It's the same thing with the guy that recently got fired from Fox. I don't remember his name.
I
He
think it's
also
Tom, right?
Oh, what's the name?
Is it Tom?
Tucker Carlson. That's his
Okay.
name. Like, he also started off in the same thing. He was in news media. He wrote. He's a very intellectual person. This is not a person that's an idiot by any stretch of the imagination. However, because of the way that he realized, hey, this is what the audience wants, and this is how the audience wants to receive it, he just kind of became more and more niche. He understood, like the delivery, that look in his face every time, like, it's like, hey, I'm just as shocked as you are, but he's not as shocked. He knows exactly what he's doing, but the face that he gives is the one of like, oh, I'm just here, I'm just saying these things, and I'm as stupefied as you are, but he's not.
He feeding into it.
Yeah.
He knows what he call himself, like a performative journalist or something like that. Because I recall seeing the video that he edited of when they were going through the June 6th riot. He edited in a way where you can only see them walking in, not kind of rampaging everything, right? To say that, and he actually said it verbatim, like, you can see they're tourists, like they're just trying to see, the Congress, and they're like, what are you saying? He feeds into the mayhem. He knows what the viewers want, and he knows a lot of stuff is not true, but it brings ratings. Ratings brings
Right.
money. You know what I'm saying?
Somebody
So
talked about that recently. Like, we have panderized just like this manic media. That was the term that they used. And it allows for these extreme stories to kind of have like a headway, but a lot of times they're exaggerated and they're not substantiated with facts. They're not productive. Like when you used to watch the news, I don't know if you remember, like a lot of the Haitians just would literally be just, CNN would be playing in the background. It needs to be like really
my
serious
mom,
stuff. Yeah, like really serious stuff. And even the tonal description of news was completely different. And now it is, very clickbait kind of facts. And it's created a situation where we're miseducated in so many ways because people spit the things that they hear back as truth. Like things that are backed by facts, research, and things are no longer important. We're backing it by, oh, so and so said, oh, I saw it on TikTok, or so.
Yeah, it was an opinion. It was like it became more of an opinion-based media where
Yep.
the information that we derive is from the person. So it's not like just like when I post on social media and I get like 20 likes, but it's the same post and somebody else gets 700 likes. You're like, what the? It comes down to, do the audience like you? Do they like your interpretation of it? Do they like the way you even look, saying this stuff, or do they even like the way your voice sound when you say it? So at the end of the day, it can have the same exact message. It depends on the messenger. It depends on how the messenger perceives it. Yep. So those opinions, just kind of like Don Lemon, the reason he also got fired because of all these other issues that he had. At the end of the day, he was also like a full reporter for years now. He's just was, spitting out his opinion, his perspective, the same, ringmaster style as Jerry Springer. Like, I'm going to give you the information, kind of, sort of, but I'm going to give you my slanted perception of what that information is. And you take it from there. You just throw your hands in the air. You're like, hey, I'm just going to let you know, but you see what I mean? You see what I mean? And then going to walk away. It doesn't mean that these people were dumb at all, because Don Lemon walks away with like a contract of $25 million. Like, he's going to get paid no matter what, at least $20 million, which is a lot of money. And I'm like, yo, these are not dumb people. They're just people that lack moral fibers anymore.
Yeah, I remember a segment. Someone brought this to my attention, but yeah, I remember a segment Don Lemon had at CNN. I'm not sure how long ago it was probably a while ago. Because there was an era, and this is probably the same time when Barack Obama was elected as president, right? There was an era of more Black reporters and journalists, like really on like the big platforms such as CNN. And of course, we had Don Lemon. But I remember there was something that a segment that he had, how can Black people get it together or something like that. Do you guys remember that? He had this.
I remember, and he got like a lot of backlash on it.
Yeah,
he
you know what I'm
got
talking
super
about?
backlash.
Yeah, someone brought it to my attention. I'm like, yeah, I do remember that. And I feel like that's when he started going slightly a little bit to the left when in terms of his views. But I remember that. But
yeah, he started becoming tailored with it though, but he can't really, there's groups that you can't really talk about in any vein. So he kind of
Obama got slapped for the same thing.
Yeah, like he moved away from that, and he fed into the general stuff. All of them were like against Trump, and the other guy was not against Trump. So that's what media was for the last 10 years. Is really, are you for Trump or are you against Trump? Do you even know what Trump is? Do you know what he does? Like, hey, look at Trump again. There's all this Trump conversation back and forth. Does it actually add value to your life? Nope. Does it change your life in any positive way? Nope. It's just, do you like Trump or do you hate Trump? Which one do you like? For 10 years.
And here we are now.
Here we are now. I think they both got fired on the day off. No?
Yeah, they got fired the same day, but it was something that Clee mentioned to me, I guess from a ESPN perspective. When it looks at sports people or like athletes, people want to know this: productivity versus problems. If your productivity means the money you bring in is way more than the problems that you derive or have, then we will always look the other way. But the moment where your productivity somewhat equals those problems, then we start having questions. And then when your problems supersedes your productivity, then you just get fired. And that's what happened to Tucker Carlson, because, hey, a few misstatements eventually are misopinions out there cost the company what $800 million. And after that, it cost them some more. So by that time, once you make that flip, they're like, we don't really need you. We're going to cut you out. Don Lemon on the side, there's a lot of issues with that guy. And to this day, me and my wife, we talked about it because we saw it live during like the New Year's. He was drunk as hell. I was waiting for him to get fired for weeks,
that
if
one,
not months.
Yeah.
And not months afterwards, I was sitting there like,
that was so unprofessional. Yeah.
I'm like, you ain't gonna fire this guy? But the reason that he ain't fired him, because why? productivity did not supersede, or the problems did not supersede his productivity. It's until later on when he also made a statement about that lady's age and a couple other issues that he had legally on the side on his own personal time. Those things superseded his productivity, which we basically meant that we're going to have to give you the axe.
Yeah, I could see that too. And plus, I was reading about Don Lemon. People were declining invitations to be on his show, saying that he was problematic. So there was that component of it when it comes to Don Lemon. You just gotta, I don't know, time and time again, you're not bigger than a platform that made you who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get big headed and to think that they're not gonna fire you. But what's his name? Tucker Carlson, when I was looking into this and I heard this on the New York Times podcast, it wasn't really about a defamation lawsuit. I think what really put the nail in the coffin with him was is a producer sexual harassment lawsuit that's pending on them, because they're saying like his entire environment, like his work environment, they're talking about having sex with women out loud, like making misogynist comments, very like, not the greatest suitable environment for women to work in.
And they don't want to get sued and have to deal with it.
Well, they are getting sued in that lawsuit. That lawsuit is still pending. But also, I think they didn't want to go to trial because I guess the biggest thing is it was something that he did, Tucker Carlson, when he got an interview, but there's text messages, they give you a work phone. There's text messages saying that of course, he didn't believe the whole, ballots being, rigged or anything like that. He's boosting into, that comments and what people are saying in order to gain views. And he was saying a lot of off the wall stuff about his own bosses. I'm talking about bosses, executive bosses and CEOs. So they didn't want that being public too. So they're like, yeah, you got to go. Like y'all remember Bill O'Reilly?
I remember all those people, but I think that's also part of the problem too, or I guess part and parcel of this entire news media is that you create a monster, and eventually that monster. Yep. Eventually, you have to put it down. But in that moment, that's what you do. You create. It's kind of like
you want too. So
yeah, you want like
the evils. Yeah,
the overnight celebrities. Like remember, like 2 Chainz was everywhere at one point. Then he just fell off. There's all these things that happen where you just need them for that moment to bring the revenue, to bring the money, to bring the eyeballs. And at some point, you just kind of like, you're gonna have to cut them out so you can bring somebody else, and they're gonna do the same thing in the new cycle. And I think that's part of the thing too. We had when we were growing up, like people such as Anderson Cooper, that's been on for forever, and these are they had long longevity, they've been around, they stayed around, right? Yeah, he's still on, like, so they stay around. But as you create new people in society, they're not around for as the same amount of time. They do produce a lot more than like a Anderson Cooper, but in the end, they're just not gonna, their shelf life will never be the same. It's just the same way we have our celebrities now. Like our celebrities back then, still like Madonna still makes a lot of money for some reason. Cher still makes a ton of money, but a lot of the new artists that we had in the last 2 or 3 years, they just fall off.
Yeah, I think Anderson Cooper is a great grandson or something of the Rockefeller family or something like that.
It's not the Rockefeller. He's the Vanderbilts, I think.
Vanderbilts, okay.
Yeah, he's a Vanderbilt. I think that's
he'll
what
be okay no matter what.
yeah, he'd be fine. But I'm just saying overall, like, we used to meet people and they were there with us for the long term. Yeah. But now we're having pretty much, flash in the pan people that's going to be here for maybe a year or two, and they're going to disappear. Like Designer, strangely enough, the guy that sung the song Panda.
Yeah, he's going through his mental issues.
Mental issues. This guy was caught on the plane doing some other stuff.
I will say after the Cardi B defamation lawsuit, and we have this huge defamation lawsuit with Fox News, I think we are kind of transitioning out of, I think we're seeing the consequences, I'll say
ramifications. It's okay to say.
Ramifications. Shut up.
She's trying to skip. I didn't want to like the consequence. Consequence.
Ramifications of this is we're getting out of, because number one, what happened with Trump, right? In the riot, and we're seeing how he publicized and pushed and boosts fake news, and blah, blah, blah. And what that have created. Now people that he have actually endorsed are losing their seats in Congress and are not getting the same fame or notoriety that he thought for him backing them up, right? Now you have the defamation lawsuit, like big, like Fox. Like, of course, I think people are just tired of this narrative that is constant fake news and being there was never any consequences of saying false information. There was never any consequence. I was happy that Cardi B won that lawsuit because you can't be going on YouTube and all these other things, being that's on the lower scale, being a blogger and saying all this stuff. And it happened to Fox News. Like, you are being judged on the same parameter. Like, you just can't do that. You know, and people really feed into this. People believe you have some level of credibility. People believe you. You know,
Well, and CNN got in trouble for that too. Or CNN and MSNBC. Remember, there was a white kid. I don't know his name, but I remember he was in DC, and there was a Native American guy, and I think it was just the way the photo was framed, and it made it seem like the kid was like a super racist, and if he wasn't. So the kid actually sued those type of media, and he also won too. So it's not just.
I think it happened at that protest.
Yeah, it had. Yeah.
How it was photographed.
Yeah, how it was photographed, whatever it was, and it's like, oh, like this is, and it. You know, I don't want to say it destroyed the kid's life. Obviously, it didn't. I think it also created a lot of money for the kid. But at the end of the day, like, you find, to your point, that there are consequences to how we frame stuff, and I think we lost that as a society. And we've gone, to your point, too far, especially with social media the way it is. Anybody could post anything on IG, TikTok, or Twitter saying, hey, this person has STDs. You don't know if it do or don't, but you just kind of like, you say it because you think it's fun. But now you're going to find that, hey, it has consequences, especially if you have 50,000 followers on YouTube. That's good enough for, I personally believe, if you have 10,000 followers, you could basically sue that person. Like,
there's level implications too, that we're always trying to imply information we don't know. Like, for example, shout out to That Absurd podcast. The homies of mine, they were getting to this like riff about, did you see that video of the black guy going off about the crying baby?
Nah.
Basically, the guy just going off on that there were in thousands of feet up in the air, and this baby just crying, going berserk, and he's in the seat, and he just like yelling too. He's like, yo, I'm in this up in this air, tighten this baby. They're trying to calm him down. He's like, calm me down, calm the baby down, like going off, whatever. And they're going back and forth saying that, you know, he's getting upset, the black guy's getting upset at the parents who's not doing enough to kind of quiet the baby down. And, you know, the other opposing side to that, saying like, you're implying that he's getting upset regarding the parents. He didn't actually say that. He's saying that you guys are not doing enough. He didn't really direct it at the parents or whatever. Like, I think we see 15 seconds, 20 seconds of a video and just implies so much information looking outside of the context of what is actually happening. And I think that creates a narrative for people where it goes any other direction it may go. And I see that a lot. Like, you can see a 20-second video, 30-second video, we're just implying information like, he didn't say that. Or we don't know that.
They
you get what I'm saying?
Story on the side.
Yeah, like, and I was listening to my friends, and I was listening to the podcast. And then what they did was they went and looked for the video, and we heard it again while they were recording a podcast. And he did say it, but it wasn't directly to, he could have been talking to the flight attendant, the person next to him. You get what I'm saying? He wasn't directing to the parents. We don't know what the parents were doing. You get what I'm saying? So just like, and we don't even know if it was a black baby or not a black baby. And there was implying that it was a black baby. Like, what if it was a white baby? They won't do anything. I'm like, well, we don't know what color is the baby, you know? So I think those sort of things kind of create that narrative of what we think that is happening, and that can go like any other routes. That's the part I just don't understand, don't like. And I tell you guys all the time, I don't believe anything on social media. Like, when things go viral, I'm like, yeah, they purposely made it viral. Like, after that girl,
everything is just fake.
Everything is purposely. Like, after that girl about she has X amount of kids, and one of the baby dads brought food to one of the kids and not the other kids, like that was made up. You know what I'm
That was
saying?
made
Like,
up. Oh shoot, it's
yeah.
messed up my life, man.
I
Messed up my
told
life.
you. I sent you the thing. She said it was a setup. She knew it was gonna get a lot of craze, a lot of debate about it, and people were just going in who was right, who was wrong. People just creating stuff, and the guy that got out the trunk, like, what's he said? Something about money. I
I don't
forgot.
know.
I forgot. But like people are just creating viral moments, and I'm like, I don't believe nothing no more. Like
I
I
don't believe
don't like
nothing.
it's really deteriorating my own reality a bit. Like, yeah, it's on the internet. It's not real. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I have come to conclusion as. Like, if I can't look this up, yeah, this is not real to me.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the sad part too. Go, we finding even data is always being refuted left to right. Because when I post on my stuff about the financial data, people are like, oh, it's fake, it's made up. I'm like, you know what? I don't even fight people. I'll be like, you're right. I've made that thing up for no reason at all. That's what I did. It doesn't matter the source. It doesn't matter if the source is factual or not. If they looked it up or not, it doesn't matter. Once the people make their decisions based on what they think it is, they're always going to double down on that. And that's the sad point. We're in a point of society where, especially in Western media or Western society, that a lot of it is fracturing, a lot of it is falling apart. And people are going to suffer for it in the long-term sense from a psychological perspective, familiarity, the household. Um, hey, people say education is a scam. People say a job is a scam. Your 401k is a scam. I don't know, eating food may be a scam at this point. I
Yeah,
have
they
no
say they
idea.
say
Run
they
that
say
back.
skip the Starbucks and buy you a house for $4.
Yeah, like
Save your house down payment.
it's funny that you mentioned that. I think what's happening is like, how the idea of like decentralizing information and like no longer gatekeeping, it's creating the inverse of
I
people
can see
not
that.
yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, well, yeah, gatekeep this. It was so much harder. Da, da, da. So now it's out. It's like, oh, is it really even real? Is it this? Is it that? The thing about it is, remember how when you had English class, especially in high school, and you had to read a text and then you had to critically think about what the text said, or those questions on the exam that pretty much said, can you contextualize what you have read? And here are the
Infer, yeah.
answers to the questions. Like they'll ask you something about the text, and to be able to answer if this is true or not, which of these statements have been falsified. I don't think we can pick those things out anymore because we have lost the ability to critically think. Perception wise, there's a big power in being able to look at a scenario, take a scope of the information, be able to critically think of likelihoods, not perfectly, but likelihoods. Right now, we don't have the ability as a society, or we don't care to gain those skills anymore because we have criticized those skills. We think, well, I can now put AI, and AI is going to be the person that regurgitates answers to me. Where, well, you're just as good as the questions that you ask. You're just as good as the inquiry that you already know, the knowledge. Google's search is so amazing because the more knowledge you have of the general context of what you're searching for, the better the search is. So we are losing critical skills. And, I push back on a lot of things about is it social media? I think societal wise, there's going to always be shifts. There's going to be always ways the shifts impact us, but we have to learn to take what's good of the situation and kind of remove the things that are progressive negative. And just to summarize, it's just like critical thinking skills has been a lost art. People don't understand nuance. It's either, oh, you're this or you're that, when much of life is in dichotomy and gray areas.
I think it's an overcorrection.
Right, which is
the whole gatekeeping thing. Like we're
yes.
gatekeeping and stuff, and all the information is flowed out. The information is accessible to many people, which is great. But in the inverse of that, like you were saying, it's just like too much of it. It's not the
law always says this, because I think he talks a lot to the people that budget or are looking for financial wealth, and he's always saying let's say take his net max thing, the list, right? People are jumping to step 14 and hadn't done step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And so people will go into well, I want to day trade, I want to do these other things. And you're like, well, do you have a budget? Are you understanding that you can't outrun if you have a car that's like 29% interest rate and your returns are at 22%, that you might want to take a portion of what you're doing to handle the 29% interest that you're having, like to balance out the decision making. But that means that you have to critically think. That actually means you actually have to sit down, think through things, and have diversity of information coming in. Most people are listening to people that already think what they think, which creates a disaster of growth of learning. The whole purpose of learning is to create tension. It's to create the ability for your brain to formulate new ideas. Like when you're reading, when you're putting the stuff, like I'm doing the MBA. And one of the things that I realized is not that I didn't know the business stuff. All my professors has given me the same feedback. You are very astute. You understand the nuance of so many different things. But you know what the MBA has taught me? Nuance of terminology, of understanding like the backbone fundamentals of financial structures for business, of understanding the backbones of the laws that go into making business happen and how you can use those laws for or against your business. All these nuanced things that now I have the terminology for, I have the foundational structure for, that doesn't necessarily make me a better business person tomorrow, but in the long term, it gives me context to some of the conversations that I've been having over the years. But I think we're in this place where I don't think we care. It is. I'm not saying that we don't care at all. I just don't think that we care enough to deep dive into what is causing us. And I'll leave this conversation with this. One thing that God has been laying on my heart about is the term family foundations. And I've been meeting with a group of women since December every Thursday, and we've been kind of going through different like spiritual understandings and things like that. But I came out of it with this idea that I think it's really important for those who care, is that if we don't go back to fundamentals and foundational principles, our society is going to collapse within itself, because we're missing key things that actually cause us as Homo sapiens and just people in general to function well. We're kind of going against those things that by nature and nature, as a Creole would say, that is actually going to cause a very bad, destructive outcome if it doesn't get changed. Societally, families, structures, those things actually, like having places where people have refuge, whether it's, it doesn't have to necessarily be a concept of church or community. These are the things that keeps us surviving. These are things that bring solutions. The more and further we would go away from them, the harder it's going to be to raise competent, high-skilled human beings. That's just my opinions. But I think these are things that need to be worked on. And there's different sectors. There's like, we talk about this financial wholeness. It's not just the budget. It's not just investing, but it's, mental health. It's being able to have like a secure plan. I went to a senior citizen meeting that we have because Waltham has an aging society, and I was there. And because guess what, you didn't say you had to be 60 and over, but I was hearing what was going on with the retirement plans and what's going on with Medicaid and Medicare and how much is actually covered and what's not covered and what can you do. And I realized even estate planning is not something that you do once. Every year, based off of the demographic of your family, based off what's happening in your family, needs to be adjusted and recalibrated. You have a kid that needs to be readjusted. One of the spouses get a terminal illness or chronic illness, it needs to be adjusted. I think that we don't realize like how much pivoting and like collaboration is needed. And I feel like if we don't take these things serious, people are just going to be dropping off family members into nursing homes and being accountable to the state. And that's like my mini rant of like why all this pop culture, all this information media stuff, like it's real out there. Like there's real stuff and people not being able to be taken care of and not having community, that it's going to creep because the knees not going to keep working the way they were working. So a lot of things for us to consider. Yeah, man, the knees ain't going to work the way they used to work.
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling right now. Almost 34. I've been trying.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was there.
I guess it makes a lot of sense because the way that we've formulated society based off these entertainment, these ringmasters, these opinion pieces, is part of the problem that we're having now with the destruction of a lot of our ethos, our principles, or even the dynamics that we have in our families. And that dynamic translates to how we run the country. And yeah, you could drop your parents off, or yeah, you could drop somebody off to the nursing home and then come to the care of the state. But then the state becomes indebted, right? And then who pays for that still? You pay for that through your taxpayer dollars. So even if you're not the one doing it directly, somebody else might be doing it, and so on and so forth. And we're going to find that life is going to be interestingly more difficult because of exactly what you said. There's at one point you touch upon one thing I always tell people is a Google search, but I think you're right. Like, I don't think other people even know how to Google search. And I think that's probably part of their problem. Like, for me, I'm really good at searching this stuff out. Why? I just position myself. I want to ask those questions. I have inquiries that I'm making postulates. I'm making theories. So I'm looking these things up. But people, I'm not quite sure if they just start at, hey, Lauren said, invest, and they just put invest in Google search and see what happens instead of actually queries and understandings and so on and so forth. So the better that you are, or the more educated that you become, the more critical of a person that you are, you end up having better questions, and better questions yield better results. On top of that, it was something that you talked about, which is the nature of how we interpret things. And there was another YouTuber that talked about it and said, text, when we had things that were written, anything that was written, newspaper, a book, damn near a tablet somewhere, everything that was written in a form in which we could have to, look at it, it lends itself to a form of critique. So we never truly believed it, but we also kind of it created more questions. It created more opportunities for us to think deeper about the subject matter and also offer the critique to it. The problem is, in today's day and age as a society, we move towards voice as well as pictures. Voice and pictures is one thing. Pictures solidify that this event actually happened, right? So this is how the human mind conceptualizes an image, and it makes sense. A voice, though, lends credence to what the picture is, and in complement to each other, you have a truth. Maybe it's an untruth, maybe it's not even true at all, but it is a truth that exists. So even if Tucker Carlson said this happened, but now that you see an image or a video with his voice, you assume what he says to be more true than you actually read about the incident. So you're right. We probably need to shoot people. Not shoot people, but we need to kind of move people towards reading more, becoming critical learners, and actually becoming more educated. So that way they could actually make better decisions for their lives, or even have better searches in their Google searches in order for them to actually think critical about the next items that come along as well. So I know I said a lot of stuff there, but I thought it was deep.
Yeah, because it's really a deep issue just in general. But here's one thing that I think that has I don't know if you guys seen this clip going around where Michelle Obama was like, our generation can't not be happy but for more than a minute. As soon as we're unhappy, 60 seconds, we have to find something that's going to make us happy. We quit. We don't persevere through things. And, I'll just use this analogy. I bought, like those storage shelves, like they're either could be black or silver. I bought one, and I bought two of them in a box. And the first time I did it, it took me such a long time because I was like, these instructions are so weird. Like, I'm not really understanding it. So I went ahead, searched to see if they had like a breakdown, because I am a visual person and also was reading it out. The second time I built it, it took me 3 times less to actually build the second one out, because I experienced the first one. I understood what worked. I understood what each of the pieces needed to be. And what I started to understand, like, that is literally the ethos of life. We're not even trying anymore. And so by proxy of not trying, we're not learning. And by proxy of not learning, we're not getting better. And what we think is that we stay the same. If you're not getting better, you don't just become stagnant. You're not static. You actually decline. And so that's like the paradigm shift in my brain every day, that even if I'm not at the quote unquote body size or whatever I am physically in the gym, but the more I go consistently, even if it's 1% better in 2 years, I'm not going to be static and go in the inverse of getting worse. I'll actually get better. But that actually means showing up, trying, not working. That doesn't work. Failure for this. And then eventually when you do it again, you get better. But we don't give ourselves the space to experience a gut-wrenching, this doesn't feel good, the uncomfortability. And so by proxy, I'm just going to go get my next hit. And for some people, it's the next hit is actually finding out, well, let me just live vicariously through somebody else, or let me just do this, and not necessarily actually sitting in their own life and saying, well, how do I incrementally get better? If that thing in your brain doesn't snap that you're like, I got to actually change and then start doing, you kind of stay in the same loop. And what I perceive to be a cycle of failure.
Dan, you coming out, you sounding like, oh boy, man, David Goggins out here.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe that's probably why I'm also like
too much David Goggins out here. He's like, yo, you cycle of failure. Like, what? It's hard. What a great book, though. I still haven't finished the Never Finished, so it's funny enough. But what an ironic name of Never Finished.
Right.
I need to get back to that book as soon as possible. But that's an amazing interpretation. I think
that's the Navy SEAL dude.
Yeah, the Navy SEAL, like this, he's pushing the boundaries of the human mind. The conception of us getting we're so comfortable now, especially in the West, that we've lost the ability to grow. We're too comfortable. Everything comes to us too easy. Too many Amazon Prime deliveries. Too many, media's all over the place, to the point where Atlanta is not even watching anything on TV anymore. It's way too much. It's way too damn much. But for every Atlanta that's out there, there's somebody else watching one too much hours of television. I still remember the stat that's out there, or the Nielsen rating, and even McKinsey report surveys out there. So you could double check me, fact check me if you need to. But a lot of Black households are watching, nearly 8 hours of TV, screen time per day. Purely 8 hours per day. That's a lot of hours. It's 6 to 8.
That's a work shift.
It's literally it's like our kids leave school and they plop in front of a screen and they watch it for the rest of the day. That's how our kids matriculate, and that's part of the problem. That's why you have a different TikTok that's available in China versus that's one that's available in the US. They've realized that the screen time is destroying human productivity and also the kids' capacity to be still, to learn, to be disciplined, or even to be mentally kind of like stable. Because we're so, to Michelle Obama's point, we're so like hyped up, and the anxiety of it all, like you just can't sit still within yourself anymore. You can't sit in one location and be fine. You can't do anything and actually be okay. It's problematic, and our kids are suffering for it. And what's worse is like, oh yeah, that's just our kids. But I'm like, those kids are going to become the adults that you depend on for running water, for garbage truck pickup, for everything to keep us running as a society. You need your kids to be functionally able adults, and we're not building those right now. It got weird, huh? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Life, you know what it is because we know it's the truth, which is why Biden is doing that parole program.
Parole. Well, he's also he's doing the immigration program as well. A lot of countries are going to start doing that to bring in more immigrants to work, because the people are just not it anymore. Even my goddaughter, she's like what, 16 now. And they try to give her a job to just work, part-time at retail or something like that to make some money. And before she even started her job, she called me. She says she's having mental health issues.
Oh, goodness.
Bruh.
I'm like, you didn't clock in yet, though. Like, you didn't clock in. And I'm like, hey, you're 16. Do you know you're going to have to be working at least till you're 60 or 70? And you already have a problem with it. In the year didn't even start yet. Year one or hour one didn't even start yet. She already had a problem with it. So it's going to be an interesting future that we're setting up, because it's not just her, but it's a lot of the subsequent generation that don't know how to drive their own car. They don't know how to shop for any groceries because they don't know how to cook. They barely know how to clean. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's tragic.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Because that's scary. Because it's like, if at 16 you already tapped out, you got a long way to go.
Yeah, and her sister is not even. Her sister also seems about to graduate. They're all going to start graduating. Sister doesn't know how to do her life. Period. That means she doesn't want to go to community college. She doesn't want to do trade school. She doesn't want to go to college. She don't even want to work. So what does she want to do?
Influencer.
No, just be. Like, you would think influencer is part of it too, but influencer requires actual still work. Like, they don't want to do none of it. They got so used to everything being almost catered to them. We
taking care for them.
Yeah, we created a society of just those people now. Like, we had to use our imagination. Why? Because we didn't have a lot of internet. We had to use, I guess we had to go outside because that's the only way to make friends. We weren't able to call them on cell phones like that. Or we wasn't able to hang out online like that on the metaverse. We weren't able to do all of that. So we had to go out. TV, there's only so few networks that you could pick from. On top of that, you didn't have so many like programmings catered to you. So you had a few programming that you, maybe Saturday morning cartoons, you clocked in. But once that was done, like, you clocked out. That was it. Wow. There was other stuff that you went through. So we have a society where there's a full library of stuff that kids could watch unadulterated for the rest of their lives.
On that note.
Well, thank you for listening to the Financial Griot podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a positive note, but it's a note.
It is a note. It is a note.
Yeah.
And we definitely hit 100 episodes or something. So I'm actually proud of us. We've over 100 episodes. We're doing that. And people like us, maybe it's 20 people, maybe it's 50, but yeah, people like us.
They still download. That's all that matters.
Click, click, clear.
I love it. I think we are genuinely being ourselves, speaking on our experiences and just giving it from our perspective, which is very candid. Sometimes it can be very raw, but it's the truth. It's our truth. And I think that's what made TFG so great. And I appreciate everyone who's consistently tuning in and downloading and sharing our information, or just hitting any one of us up. Just want to follow up on the episode, something we spoke about specifically. And I think it's pretty cool. Create its own niche of community, however you see fit.
Yeah, that is true. That's definitely true. A lot of people are getting a lot from it, or even getting those moments, of aha moments, or even the scary moment where you say, I didn't think about that. That might be a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But you can find me, Atlanta Elson, on the IG streets, Atlanta_Elson, as well as YouTube. You want to look at some past videos of mine. But I am here. I am living. Life is just lifing, Thanks for tuning in. What about you, LG?
Yeah, you can find me on the neighborhoodfinanceguy.com, where I drop a lot of articles. I dropped like 20 articles in April. So I'm going to be dropping maybe another 15 in May out here. So we'll see. Just kind of run myself all the way to the $1 million net worth next year, April 2024. It's coming. Let's go. We got 12 months to the game. Let's do it. Oh, well, you're not going to find you nowhere?
Well, you can find me on the internet at Lovely Merdelis, anywhere on all the socials. Since school is wrapping up soon, get ready for my my fake gig of being an influencer on Instagram, so that Lawrence and Atlanta can laugh. I'll be back to making reels to get my mind off this summer. But in all seriousness, I hope that you guys are doing well, and thank you for listening. 100 episodes is not an easy feat, but we appreciate you. And we're out.
TFG. Bye.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Griot podcast, powered by the Wealth Builders Collective.